They're coming out for the first of their formation laps.
So Piers Lehane leading them out, top of his group, second overall in qualifying yesterday, the Australian. And he finished second this morning in his first heat behind Philip Moran. Philip and Piers, top two in qualifying and the top two in the earlier race. Piers Lehane will have seen that Philip Moran not having quite such a good race there, finishing down in 7th place. A good opportunity for Piers. Mark Litchfield there is the one that's not worried at all about championship points and standings. He's just here for this one-off appearance and is therefore most engulfed his brain with trying to get a good grid for the pre-final and try and win the race. That's all he'll care about, winning the race in any way he can. You can see from the way he had that battle with Ed Brand earlier on that he's not exactly pussyfooting around at the start of the day, is he?
And can I mention, Chris, I did say it in commentary, I cannot recall when I've seen a leader of a race so early in the race looking round. Mark Litchfield was almost saying, right, I've jumped out into the lead, let me just have a weigh up of who these guys are and what we're going to do. Really, I just wondered at one time, was he not at full power and thinking, hey, I'm going to have to be careful here? It's an interesting one, isn't it? But in the end of the day, he'd got himself into a lead that looked comfortable and then spilt it at the end. I'm fascinated to see how Mark goes in this one.
Okay, so Piers Lehane and Mark Litchfield will be on the front row of the grid. Piers with the blue and yellow colour scheme, the bright yellow and orange helmet. Mark Litchfield with a much darker colour scheme, dark kart, dark race suit, yellow, green and orange on his helmet. And then you've got Jack Weprin and Ed Brand on the second row of the grid. So we had this big battle, this huge battle, which came to blows really in the first race between Litchfield and Brand. So we're going to be nose to tail in this race as well. They were battling for first and second. They made contact. And in the end, they both dropped back down towards the tail end of the top 10. We'll see how they get on. To talk you through the start of the race is Ken Walker.
So Piers Lehane is on pole position, joined on the front row by Mark Litchfield. Jack Weprin and Ed Brand are row 2. A 9-lap humdinger. Here we go. And it's an aborted start. Again, I don't know whether it was the approach speed too quickly, but certainly went well. The approach speed was too quick. That was the call for the aborted start. So we try again. And once again, I say Piers Lehane has the considerable advantage of being on pole position, but he also has the not insignificant responsibility of bringing the field in at an acceptable pace. Let's put my colleague Chris Hartley quickly on the spot. Mark Litchfield versus Piers Lehane. Who's going to lead after a couple of turns?
I think maybe Mark will lead early on. It's just based on Piers hasn't had the best of starts, has he, this year?
That's what I was thinking.
And earlier on. But once he gets into the groove, Piers, I think he's every bit as quick as Mark.
I think of all of the top drivers, Piers probably comes through from drivers in front of him late in the race, perhaps better than anyone. Okay, we try again. Piers Lehane and Mark Litchfield, the front row. Well, that pace looks okay. Coming in for a second attempt. And we are racing this time, and Piers Lehane does look to have the advantage, but it is a good start by Mark Litchfield. Wow, local track knowledge there, because from the off-pole position where Jack Weprin was definitely going well from the inside of row 2, Mark Litchfield was able to close the door on him and say, no, I'm coming into second place, and Ed Brand has wriggled into third place. And Ed Brand, looking as if he wanted to go, well, he did want to go second, but looking as if he thought he saw a way through. Kart number 236 in fourth place is Jack Weprin, and just behind him, that's Eugene Denason, is it? Have a quick peep, 228. It is indeed Eugene Denason. So Eugene Denason at least getting a little bit further round the circuit than he did on his opening lap. Well, have to say, Piers Lehane did pretty much what we'd anticipated initially, but Mark Litchfield saying, I know my way round this place. You can't tell me anything about it. But coming up to complete the opening lap, very fascinating battle. Piers Lehane holding that advantage to a tune of about, 0.3 of a second. But Ed Brand, does he go under Mark Litchfield? It looks as if he does. Yes, he does. Chris Hartley nodding vigorously, and Ed Brand putting the pass on Mark Litchfield as we approach the bridge at the start of the second lap. So now it's Ed Brand trekking down Piers Lehane and Mark Litchfield in a comfortable third place so far, but an absolute bevy of drivers behind. Chris, pretty much the start we'd anticipated.
Charlie Eastwood has just dived down the inside to get fifth place at the first hairpin. Following him through with the likes of Martin Henkel-Mortensen, Eugene Denison lost at least 4 places as he had to go off the racing line because the racing line was stolen away from him with a good move from Charlie Eastwood. So Charlie looking good. Somebody's getting a technical flag. It's 281 who's getting the black and white flag,
Anthony Patak in 14th place. So he's not a front runner, but he's come all the way from the USA for his second disappointment of the morning.
Rear bumpers hanging off that car. That's why he's got the black and orange flag. It's a technical disqualification, and effectively that puts him out of the race. He'll have to peel off the circuit pretty soon, pretty sharpish. So Piers Lehane generally hasn't had wonderful starts this year, but that was a very good start, and I'm pleased to say he's held the lead of the race. But Ed Brand there in second, Mark Litchfield third, and it's all tightening up again between them. Charlie Eastwood has tweaked something on the setup of the cart, hasn't he? Because he looks much more competitive in this race in fourth place.
Again.
Henkel-Mortensen was in fifth place, but I think he's lost the position out to Collins, hasn't he? Collins getting through in the 316 cart.
Josh Collins, the Welshman, very, very impressed on his Rotax Euro Challenge debut. Very impressed with the guy from Swansea.
Jan Jonk hasn't made the best of starts this time around. He's gone backwards, in fact, down in 13th place in the 221 cart. Through go the top three then absolutely together. Piers Lehane about to go under the bridge as the race leader. Will he be the race leader coming out of turn 3? Coming under attack from Ed Brand. Brand's gone through. Litchfield's gone with him. And down from first to third in the blink of an eye goes the Australian. So that was a good move from Ed Brand. Piers has pulled off moves like that on other people earlier in the race, and so we got another resumption of this battle between Ed Brand and Mark Litchfield, who had the closest possible battle you could imagine in the first race. Bit too close, really, and they both came to grief. Both fell down the top 10 as a result of it. The Mark Litchfield is swarming all over the tail of the race leader. Further back, a good scrap going on for fifth place, which I think Martin Henkel-Mortensen has got back into
in front of
fifth,
Collins.
ahead of Josh Collins, the Welshman driver. Jack Weprin's just behind them in 7th place as well. Jules Kazan is 8th. Di Maio is 9th. Van Paris is rounding out the top 10. Eugene Denison has slipped back now to 11th place as the race leaders come through to conclude the 4th lap of the race. The top 3 close together and being caught, Ken.
Yeah, most unquestionably, and incidentally, that front-running 2 that became a front-running 3, I think we'll call a front-running 4 now, because Charlie Eastwood is only 1 cart length adrift of the third place of those drivers, the former race leader, the pole sitter Piers Lehane, and Mark Litchfield closing on Ed Brand. You know, Chris, makes me wonder. It seemed to me that there was no definite intent to put a pass on. It's putting pressure on the guy in front, though, isn't it? It's mind games as well as physical. And Mark Litchfield looking around. Charlie Eastwood gone third, as I hear Jill calling, while I was only looking at the front 2. And so Piers Lehane just drifting back a little bit. The world champion getting himself on a real song at the moment. Racing, incidentally, with the memory of Mr. Karting in Northern Ireland, Terry Wilkinson, who sadly passed away this week. And Charlie racing in memory of Terry Wilkinson. So putting in a good show. We're at the start of lap 6.
Some battle for 5th place as well between Josh Collins in the dark black and orange race suit and Martin Henkel-Mortensen, the green and white colours and the orange helmet. They've switched around a few times now for 5th position. And look at this, Charlie Eastwood's going for 2nd place here. He's got a good run coming out of turn 5. Mark Litchfield was slow on the exit. May have just made a slight mistake somewhere, and that allows Charlie to get through to 2nd place. This is more like the Charlie Eastwood we know and love. Through to 2nd he comes, and his kart, which has been off the ball a bit for whatever reason in qualifying yesterday and in the first race earlier on, although it did seem to get quicker and quicker as the race went on this morning. He's right on the money this time, and he looks back to his competitive best in 2nd place.
And Piers Lehane putting more and more pressure on Mark Litchfield, just at the little blind spot we have. Don't think that has resulted in a pass, but yeah, maybe it has. Let's have a look as they come through. This is the start of lap 7. Ed Brand's margin over Charlie Eastwood is 0.343, but Charlie Eastwood has set the fastest lap of the race at 57.0. Mark Litchfield holding off the challenge from Pierce Lehane. I was wrong when I thought that Pierce had gone past him. So we're looking now at Pierce Lehane in 4th place, the most likely guy, serving notice to put a pass on, and he attempts it and executes it. So going 3rd on lap 7, Pierce Lehane, the pole sitter. Charlie Eastwood also leading now, not also leading, also going past his guy. So in the blink of an eye, 2 passing moves, Chris. 2 great races at the front of this one.
And they're all being caught by Josh Collins in 5th place, who's bringing Martin Henkel-Mortensen with him. That pair about 0.4 of a second quicker than the 4 drivers ahead of them on the previous lap. So flying after them they are, helped by the fact that the top 4 are battling so much. So at the start of the next lap, we're going to have a train of 6 karts all battling for the lead of the race. Brand leads the way. Eastwood 2nd through turn 1. Pierce Lehane 3rd position. Mark Litchfield in 4th place. Nobody makes a move on the way into turn 3. They wind their way round through turn 4, back over the bridge, back over the circuit they go. No change between the top 4, but it's a move now maybe for 3rd place. Pierce Lehane forced off the line. There was no contact, but his racing line was stolen. He tries to come back up the inside of the way into the hairpin, and there's a bit of contact, and he runs wide and loses 2 more places to Pierce Lehane. So he's back down to 6th place now. Litchfield 3rd, and into 4th place has come Joshua Collins, but maybe not for long, because Martin Henkel-Mortensen looks at the inside at turn 8 and goes back to 4th place, and the 2 leaders are going side by side now as well, and Eastwood's got it.
Charlie Eastwood leads him, Chris. Charlie Eastwood leads.
What a move that was from Charlie Eastwood. Lap charter's nightmare, that, because every time you tried to write the top 6 down, it completely changed. Thank goodness for computers. We've got a lap to go.
1 to go. Last lap, guys. Last lap.
Through they come then. Charlie Eastwood now has to defend rather than attack for the first time in the race. Ed Brandy swarming all over him, tries the outside line. He's got to be careful though, because he's got his old friend Mark Litchfield just behind, and everybody else. Martin Henkel-Mortensen gets up the inside of Litchfield. You try a move and it fails, and you end up losing a place here because it's so tight. And look at the top 2 now with half a lap to go into the hairpin. Constantine is up under braking into the first hairpin. Nobody makes a move. Charlie Eastwood has got his work cut out here though, Ken, with half a lap to go.
He's closing them up, isn't he? Because he's looking over his shoulder to place his cart where he needs to, and that means you've got half a dozen carts in the space of where you'd normally expect to have 3 or 4, and Charlie Eastwood playing, well, do we say he's playing the measured defensive driving game, or do we say he's taking a big gamble? Doesn't have the pace out of the corners, but then neither does everybody else. It looks as if it's worked for the Irishman, the world number 1, coming up the home straight. There's the checkered flag, and Charlie Eastwood wins it. Ed Brand 2nd, Martin Henkel-Mortensen squeezing past Mark Litchfield for that 3rd place. Mark Litchfield 4th. Pierce Lehane, a very eventful race for 5th place. Josh Collins, perhaps even worth more than his 6th place. Eugene Denason, who had also the good and the bad in that race, came home 7th. The Canadian Zach DeMelo 8th. Jules Cousin 9th. And the 10th place was held by Kart 247, which is Glenn Van Paris, driving for Bouvin Power from Belgium.
Unbelievable race that. I tell you what, if the final is half as good as that on Sunday, we're in for a treat, aren't we? What a race that was. Charlie Eastwood, the winner. As you say, looking over his shoulders more than he was looking in front on the last lap. Put the cart in the right place and held them off. Ed Brand, who's looking feisty this weekend, in 2nd place. Henkel-Mortensen, he's there again, 3rd. Might not have had the best qualifying day, but boy, he can race. Mark Litchfield 4th. Pierce Lehane 5th, Josh Collins 6th, Eugene Denison came back well to 7th, Zachary DeMello, the Canadian, Jules Cousin, the French driver, and Glenn Van Paris, the Belgian driver, rounding out the top 10. Jack Wepper in there, good qualifying day, but so far it's been a disappointing race day for him. The American dropping back again there, quite a few places, lost about 7-8 places there, and ends up down in 12th position out of the running. So what a battle that was, and we're only in the first portion of the weekend, aren't we?
I think the most relevant thing you've said is that would grace a final. It would. And, when we talk about experience enabling you to drive a measured race, we're in it for the long haul. We've seen some cracking racing on the first morning of race day. That does conclude the morning's track action. We do take a short, and it is quite a short lunch break, so don't go too far away. Those of you that are tuned in online, we are scheduled after lunch to be racing again at 13:20, and it's 12:45 now, so only just about a half an hour's break. And I'm sure those of you tuned into our GMMC TV will be enjoying the action as much as those of us here at PF. Chris, if we carry on like this today, I don't know about the drivers, but you and I will be worn out.
Yeah, we need to lie down, won't we? Terrific morning session. About half an hour's break now. Then from track action. If you're watching online though at RGMMC TV, we're going to show you some of the interviews that we showed this morning again during the lunch break. So you'll hear from some of the drivers, and you'll also hear from the circuit owner, Paul Fletcher. So we'll run those interviews during the course of the lunch break. But a quick break from the commentary now. Ken Walker and myself will be back.